Getting the right white balance in our landscape photography images, or indeed any image, be it travel through to portrait, is key to the success of that image. Why? Because the white balance helps to give us an overall feel of that image, whether it's a nice cool image or a warm image. If we're not looking at the image and thinking that looks so nice and it speaks to me because the white balance is out, then really we've lost the game. We need to first get that white balance right in our images before we do anything at all with them. So let's today look at the white balance of our images and how we can attain a good white balance in our landscape photography images. My name is Julian Elliott. I'm a professional landscape and travel photographer. If you're interested in keeping up with what I do as a professional photographer, make sure that you click on subscribe down there in the bottom right hand corner. So where do we start with the white balance in our images? The first logical step for a lot of people, and certainly beginners, is to start with the auto white balance in our cameras. But it's not the be all and end all. It's just the beginning of what we do and can do with the white balance in our landscape photography. So let's just start with auto white balance and work up from there to see how we get from in the field to post-production and how those images will differ as we come from the field literally to post-production. Okay, so for the first and easiest method, especially for beginners, if you're new to photography, you're going to set your camera on auto white balance and you're going to let the camera decide the white balance of the scene in front of you. So at the moment you can see on the back of my camera there's a nice vineyard scene here in central France, and the sun is kind of going in and out, so it's playing havoc really with the white balance. But if I just take an image right now on auto white balance, it will then record the white balance as it feels is correct for that scene right now. What's the second method? The second method to be able to get white balance in our landscape photography images and any other images is to custom manage the white balance. So Canon, for example, I can turn on the Kelvin, so you can see flicking through there all the different white balances. There's cloudy, there's tungsten, so it's very blue. If I go to the Kelvin and then turn on info, I can then look at the scene in front of me and I can try and judge what I believe is the correct white balance at the moment for that particular scene. So if I can just lean over my camera and just look, it probably looks somewhere. Let's turn it back on again. It's looking quite bluish green in that grass down there in the vineyards. Somewhere maybe around there. So if I take an image, that's how my eyes are registering the scene at the moment. So that's dialing in a custom white balance. What's the next method that you can use to get a white balance in your landscape images? Something else that we can do to get a good white balance in our cameras is to use a good old grey card. Now this isn't the perfect solution to getting a good white balance in camera because we're just working from the grey itself. There's other things that we really should be taking into consideration, but it's at least a good starter for 10 to help you find a good white balance when you get into the post-production stage. So it's frustrating at the moment, the sun's gone behind a cloud. I don't think it's going to reappear again while I'm filming this, but I'm going to take a picture without the grey card in scene, and then I'm going to take a picture with the grey card in scene, and then we'll see what difference does it makes. So there's 3 different methods that you could use in the field to help along the white balance of your images, but that's not the end of the story. The end of the story does in fact lie at post-production, because we want to be able to look at the RGB values, the red, green and blue values of our image, because we need to be able to identify where any colour cast is to be able to neutralise it. So let's get the kit broken down and then get back to the office, back into Lightroom, and then let's go on to the next stages of our white balance story. So we are back in the digital workstation in front of Lightroom at the moment, and what this segment is going to be about is showing you the different ways of which you can color correct your white balance in your images, and also to show you how the different lighting can affect those particular images as well when we're looking at the RGB values. So there's the 3 images that I took when I was doing the vlog. There's also an image that I took before the blog had actually started when the light was playing ball. And there's another image that I'm going to show at the end, and it will become evident why I'm doing this. Now, the reason that I want to do this is because I know there's a lot of people out there, they sell presets and stuff that you can do all these wonderful things with Lightroom and Photoshop, etc. And it is really just a shortcut to trying to achieve something that really, it's not teaching you anything. It's better to look at individual images on an individual basis and just be looking to see what you can do with them and how things work, and applying things yourself rather than just relying on a preset from somebody. It just doesn't translate all of the time. So anyway, so let's look at these different images. So this image here, this that I'm on right now, this is the image that I took with the auto white balance sets on the camera. Now if you come over to the histogram up here, if you remember from the last video that I did on Lightroom processing, that when I looked at the white and the highlight area up here, you could see where the RGB values were and whether there was any color cast or not. So here you can see there's maybe a tiny bit of a blue color cast where this blue peak is just coming out of the end of the histogram here. So that's the first one. So overall, as far as color casts go, this particular one, it's not too bad. The camera, it didn't do too bad, the auto white balance. This next image here, this is what I took with the Kelvin setting on my camera. So I was trying to match it how I thought my eyes were actually seeing the scene. So if again you look up at the histogram up here, you can see that there's a definite blue color cast here as it's coming out from this mid-tone area here, this grey mid-tone. So there's definite blue color cast in the image. And then finally, these two images here represent, you can see where the camera moved there as I obviously knocked the camera. There's the grey card that I took just afterwards to try and use this mid-tone area here to translate back into the image here. So what can we do with these particular images? Well, let's start with, for example, this image here. So if I want to color correct this, what do I do? Well, the first thing that I want to do with this one is you'll see up here that there is a potential of a bit of a blue color cast. Now you'll remember from the basic panel, you've got your temperature slider and your tint slider. So if we just move that slider over ever so slightly, then we can just remove the blue color cast. So it looks a bit more warmer, it looks a bit more pleasing. So that's that particular image. And I can do the same with the others here. Now with the grey card, what you can do, why you would use a grey card or a color target, such as the X-Rights color target, you can take the white balance tool, and if you come over here, and so the grey card is supposed to be neutral. Now if you look on my screen, what you'll see is you'll see the RGB values. So it says 43.2, 43.2 and 45.9. So what that says is there is a definite blue color cast shift in the image. And if you look up in the histogram up around here, you will see that that is exactly the case. There is a blue color cast in the image. So what you can do with the white balance tool is if you click here on this neutral area, this supposed neutral area, then if I click on there, it will then get rid of that color cast. So if I just move it slightly, you'll see it's changed all of the values, so they are now equal, 43.6, 43.6 and 43.6. Again, if you look up in the histogram, you'll see that it has shifted. So that's removed the color cast from there. And then all you would need to do, if you've used a color target, is then just go up here to the settings, copy settings. So if I just uncheck all of them, check the white balance, copy that, go back to the previous image and then paste it in, and there you go. So if I press the Y key on my keyboard, you'll see the before and then the after. So you'll see on the right hand side, the image just looks a little bit warmer against the image on the left hand side. Another quick tip is if you hold down the shift key and press Y, you can cycle through these different views so you can see exactly where they are. So if I get rid of the white balance tool and zoom in just so I can hover around this image, you can see the definite blue color cast in the grass there. So that's one way that you could remove a color cast in your images. You've got this gray balance here, this gray card. You can use the white dropper tool to click on that, and then it will give you a neutral color in your images. So let's cycle back through to the full scale image there. There's another way that you could do color correction in your images. So let's explore that particular method. If I go back to my image whereby I thought that the color temperature was this, around 5000 or 5100 degrees Kelvin, which is what I'd dialed into my camera, you can see that there is a definite blue color cast up here. Now another way that you can add color correction into your images is if you look at the white and the black values of your images. So I want to look at the highlights first and identify where the whites are. Now obviously there's some white up in the cloud there. There's a bit of maybe white on these buildings around here. So if I take the whites slider and I push it to the right hand side, now make sure your shadow indicator and your highlight indicator is set to J key, or these squares up here. If I push this value up here, the white, you'll start to see that the red comes in here to indicate that this is where the whites are. So if I double click on whites to reset that, if I hover over this, you'll see it says 96.8, 96 and 95. So if I take this white balance tool here, again what I could do is if I hover over there, you'll see it says 96.4, 95.6, 94.6. So there's obviously a bit of a color cast somewhere in there. And again, I could click the tool just to remove that. So you'll see it says 96.1, 96.1, 96.1. But you'll see the image has gone blue. But according to Lightroom, that's now color corrected. So if I just put this back here, and if I press Ctrl Z, let's try a slightly different method again. So if I click the eyedropper and then click on the temperature tool and go back up here, what I can do here is I can see the RGB values, the 96.8, 96.1, 95. And what I want to do is get the blue, is there's an obvious blue color cast, to match the red and the green. So let's start removing the blue color cast. Now the strange thing is I'm actually going to have to go towards the blue to remove it, apparently. So this is what I'm saying, is that at times don't always rely on presets. So I'm just pressing the down arrow key on my keyboard and you'll see that the blue is going up there. So it's going up and it's going to match in a minute somewhere just around there. So you'll see it says 96.6, 96.2, 96.3. So it's pretty much neutralized the white in the cloud in the sky. However, the conventional wisdom says that we should have a near enough kind of color corrected image, but you'll see that up here you have this blue color cast that's coming in again, and you can see the image is looking blue. However, more howevers, is that when I was out there, it was a cold day, and it pretty much is how the scene would have been. So if I press the before and after, you can see it's cooled the image down. And this is where we're starting to get into, do you like your images looking cool, or do you want them looking warm, or do you want a neutral color cast? It really is coming down to science and art, which is the better of the two. Something else that you can do to further correct your image is if you bring the blacks slider down, then you'll notice where the blacks start to blow out as I bring it down. So down here in these vines, if I double click on the black slider and then zoom in here, if I zoom in just more than 1 to 1 if I actually put it 3 to 1 or 4 to 1. So you can see down here there's some detail in the dark area down here. If I hover over it, you'll see up there in the histogram it says 9.3, 8.9, 10.1. So there's a definite still blue color cast down here where I want my detail. So what do? You can go to the tone curve to remove that blue color cast. So let's go to blue on the RGB. So remember, you've got two different types of tone curve. You've got this one here, highlights, lights, darks and shadows, but I actually want the RGB one, and you can have overall RGB or red, green and blue. I want the blue. I'm then going to grab hold of this color picker here. I'm then going to go into the vine, and then I'm going to pull it down, the black, and you'll see the blue is starting to shift. So just pull it down again, click done, zoom out, and that is a fully color corrected image whereby our red, green and blue match in the white, and then down there in the shadow detail. As I said, it may be that it's color corrected, but it actually looks quite blue. You could, if you wanted to, apply the trick of pushing across the temperature slider so that this blue comes over here. So let's do that. So then it warms the image back up again. So that's that particular way of doing that. It's another tool in your toolbox to be color correcting images. You can fully color correct it. It might not look color corrected, but it is. But it may be that you look at the image and you think, well, I actually just want to warm it up again. So that is a situation whereby we have an image, we color correct it, and actually the white balance isn't how we really want it to be. So this is what I'm saying as far as presets are concerned, that they might be just a starting point, but they're certainly not the be all and end all. So don't necessarily just think, oh, I'm going to buy a preset and it will make my images look amazing. It's not the case. It's not always the case that they're going to work that particular way. Now, before I finish this particular episode for this week, I wanted to go to a different image, an image that I took in the Dolomites a couple of weeks ago, and I want to show you an image that has a blue color cast, and I'm going to correct it, and you'll see that by using exactly the same methods that it will actually banish that blue color cast and warm the image up just that little bit. So I'm going to go to this photograph down here. This is Sabon Abbey, which sits above Chiusa in the Dolomites, and there's a road that basically runs up from Italy right up to Austria. You see this when you drive up along the main road. Fantastic location, as you can see. And this is around 9 o'clock or so in the morning. Now when you're looking at this image, you can see that there is a certain color cast to it, although when you look up at the histogram, it's not necessarily evident what that color cast might actually be. But you can see here these trees, they're in direct sunlight. The sun has come over the mountains that were over behind my shoulder when I took this image, but they look quite blue. And again down here, the trees down here, they look quite blue. Again, how do we correct this image? Let's look at this photograph. Let's see what we can do with it. So I'm going to use a combination of the white balance tool and the tone curve to color correct this image. And you'll see what I mean where I'm saying that settings, that user presets in Lightroom are not necessarily the be all and end all, that every single image is in fact has to be treated on its own and color corrected on its own. So let's start that color correction process. Now, if you remember, I was looking at those RGB values. So if I start hunting around the image, if I go, for example, in the vines down here, you'll see it says 65.2, 62.5, 53. So there's a shift towards the blue end. If I go in these well-lit rocks over here, it says 85.3, 85.4, 83.6, again showing a blue color cast. The well-lit trees over here, 48.3, 50, 56.9. So again, the RGB values are showing that there's a blue color cast. So let's find a good highlight to work from. Now when you're working from highlights, I don't want to work, for example, from the highlights that are down here. These are blowing out 99.9, 99.9, 99.8. They serve me no purpose at all. I want to look for something around 95%, and that's because at around 95% we're getting good detail in our highlights. So let's see if I can find a good highlight to work from. So around here, I guess, this is showing 95.7, 95.3, 95.1, maybe up around here, 98.3, it's too much. Let's look around here, 87, 86.8, 87.1. Again, as soon as I start moving the mouse around, you can see just very slightly how these values change. So let's have a look at this one down here. So this says it's actually matching. And again up here. But I know that there's a blue color cast, so I really need to find somewhere to work from, a good area. Let's pull this up. So the whites, let's go down here. 98, 97.5, 96.3. Again, let's maybe work from the rocks down here. So if I take this color picker here and I click on there to activate the temperature. If I click down here, it says 86.9, 86.2 and 84.9. So let's try and remove that blue color cast. So if I start pressing the down arrow key to shift the blue upwards, you might be thinking, why on earth is he adding more blue in? But you will see how things change when we start working somewhere else. So at the moment, you'll see those values there. They're starting to match 86.4, 86.1, 86.3. So if I come off of that, if I dock my white balance tool, you'll see if I click before and after, the image looks a bit cooler. But it's probably a good color corrected image. So you see there 98, 97.7, 97.2. So values are starting to be just a little bit more than they were. Now I want to find a dark area. Now this is where you'll see how image to image things do change as far as processing goes, and relying on presets isn't necessarily the answer. So let's bring the blacks down and see where we're getting a lot of black. So down here in this tree area down here, so if I double click on this blacks there, if I zoom into this area down here, let's look at those RGB values again. So I've got 28.8, 23.7 and 33.8. So again, we can see there is a color difference. There's a definite blue color cast. So let's open up the tone curve. Let's go to the blue, as I always seem to be on blue. Let's take this slider here. So you position it there where you see that color cast is. So we've got 20.4, 21.4, 32. So obviously it changes pixel to pixel as to what you're going to get. So let's click and then drag down the slider, and then you'll see when we get to around 21 or so, let's just get it in there very quickly. 21.7, 21.4, 20.3. So there's a bit of a shift in the red. Let's grab hold of the red. So let's push the red up ever so slightly. Just around there. Now I know they're not exactly matching if I go back over those RGB values, but they are close enough, because really a point something isn't that much. So if I zoom out of the image, you will see now that where I had the blue color cast before, by correcting the whites, I then, by going down to the shadows, I'm able to bring back the warmth that was there that morning. So if I click the before and then after, you will see on the left hand side the before, which looks quite blue, to the more inviting image of the after. So if I shift Y so you can really see up close, if I zoom in the tree line there, you can see the blue color cast in these trees here. There's just no color at all. It seems there's no color. and yet it was autumn. There was colour everywhere. So you can see there, so I know it looks fuzzy, but it is actually at 3:1, not 1:1. You can see that tree line there. If you see this colour here, when I push it across there, how blue it looks. So there you go, that's a bit of white balance tutorial in Lightroom. So going from the field into Lightroom, inspecting RGB values, having a look around and seeing what it is that we can do with our images and seeing how those RGB values affect things, and also that from image to image, it's not necessarily the case that the scientific method works. At times we are going to be relying on our eyes to do how we feel the white balance is going to be, because a neutral white balance isn't necessarily the right way. It's a good starter for 10. So that's it for this week's vlog, which has been centering around white balance in our landscape photography, and of course you can transpose that particular theory into other genres of photography like portrait and into travel photography as well, more general area of photography that I do. So that's it. What's coming up next? I'll be in Paris next week. I'm hoping to be able to vlog when I'm in the city of Paris. I don't really like vlogging around cities, just because trying to vlog and keep an eye on everything that I've got at the same time is never the easiest thing to do. But if I can vlog and the weather plays ball, then I will be vlogging in the city of Paris. Thank you to all the subscribers that have come along in the past week or so. I know there's been a lot of you again. I think it's nearly 200 or so in the last week. Thank you to my old subscribers, and thank you to everybody that keeps commenting as well on the vlogs that I'm putting out. It's really appreciated, and I will always answer you where I can when you're asking me all those questions. So thanks so much for helping me to keep this channel alive and keep it alive with just your own thoughts as well on what I'm doing. And of course, if there's something that you want to see in a future vlog, do ask. I've already noted down things like the tilt shift lens. I know that people have asked about that, and different ways of using graduated filters. So they are on the list to do. It's a long, very long list that I have to do of vlogs over the next year or so, as well as all the travel as well that's likely to be done next year. So until the next time, hopefully next week, I shall see you again soon on my YouTube channel.